Sabadhan, which is, of course, Nepali for Achtung, Achtung.
God, I think you did that really well.
Finally gone Gurkha. I think, well, I don't know. Maybe we're going to get some Gurkhas call in and complain now.
That's a difficult one. That's tricky. That is tricky.
We've finally gone Gurkha. Joanna Lumley will approve.
Yes, well, I approve. I think that's great.
How stupid was Gordon Brown to take on lovely old wrinkly tiny old Gurkhas and Joanna Lumley? Do you remember that?
Yeah,
as political scandals go, I am the greatest politician the country's ever seen. I'm going to take on the world's most glamorous woman and her tiny little chums. I mean, what an idiot. Anyway.
But then he wrote, don't you remember, he then published a book on heroes and sort of war stories. What? Obviously, he neither researched or wrote it, but I mean, you know.
Well, yeah.
Sold nothing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because anyway, why have we gone Gurkha, which is like going Commander but with a bigger dagger? Well,
a much bigger dagger.
Because
a much more impressive
much bigger dagger. We're giving thanks to Lieutenant Stu Taylor of 70 Gurkha Field Squadron. Lieutenant Taylor sent us this enormously gratifying email this week. When this came through, completely stoked to get this. Loving the podcast. Please keep up the excellent work. As a serving officer in the Queen's Gurkha Engineers, I've been raving about it to anyone who'll listen. I was recently deployed to lead the sappers in the conversion of the Excel Centre to NHS Nightingale, and I particularly enjoyed listening to Zeno's The Cauldron each night whilst writing my sit rep. How about that? Hey? Bingo!
Yeah, that's very good.
Regimental pride compels me to ask for a feature on the contribution of Nepal and the roles of the 40 or so Gurkha battalions during World War II. I do not think it is widely known just how much of a friend to us Nepal was during the war, despite never having been part of the British Empire. This included massively increasing the number of Gurkha battalions in existence and placing the entire armed forces of Nepal at the disposal of the UK. Please keep staying safe and building up my World War II pub quiz knowledge for when we finally emerge from Stalag Luft Corona. Stu, Lieutenant S.C. Taylor, Royal Engineers, L Troop Commander, 70 Gurkha Field Strong, 36 Engineer Regiment and the Queen's Gurkha Engineers. How about that?
Well, do you know what? 36 Engineer Regiment were the people who sponsored me to go out to Helmand back in 2008.
Really?
Yeah, the commanding officer then was a great mate of mine called Dickie Wardlaw, who's now a Lieutenant General. So I've now got a mate who is a 3-star general, which just makes me feel really old. But incredible. Yeah, so I went out there with the 36 Engineer Regiment.
Really?
Yeah, they sponsored me to go out and, hung out with them and
fantastic.
Did stuff. Amazing. So that's really, it's really nice to hear from him.
Yeah, brilliant.
So thanks, Stu.
Yeah, I mean the Gurkhas is probably I don't know, that's half a dozen podcasts just to scratch the surface, isn't it? I mean, Gurkhas all over Burma. There are Gurkhas in the admin box. Am I right in thinking that there are, aren't there? I mean, there's basically Gurkhas everywhere.
So the way the Indian Army is organised. Yes, the way the Indian Army is organised is in an infantry division, you have your infantry brigades, and each brigade is split into 3 battalions. 1 British, 1 Gurkha, 1 Indian. So you have the West Yorkshires with the 2nd, 8th Gurkhas and the 1st, 3rd, I don't know.
Punjab. But they themselves, the Indian battalions, are divided up into companies of each ethnic group, aren't they? So that you don't get an over. I mean, it's sort of a leftover from the Indian Mutiny or whatever you call it now, the Great Rebellion. So that they're evenly matched ethnically, so you don't have a preponderance of any one group in that battalion.
Yeah, exactly. But they're I mean, their contribution is absolutely enormous. I mean, to the North Africa campaign, I mean, the Western Desert Fort is largely a colonial force, and there's Indian Division, the 4th Indian Division, famously, it's one of the greatest divisions ever. They then fight up through Italy as well, all the way through the Italian campaign, and of course throughout the battles in Southeast Asia. So they make an absolutely massive contribution.
I mean, 40, but
and it's interesting because what happens is these recruiters would go into Nepal and recruit, and on paper they are absolutely volunteers. It's very interesting. There was a book about India in the war by Yasmin Khan a few years ago, which was really interesting. I think the Raj at War, I think it was called, and it was a really, really good book. It was fascinating, but she was down on it because she said, you can't really say that they were volunteers because there was so much peer pressure and, strong arm tactics and all the rest of it. But it was, I always slightly felt that Yasmin was sort of slightly putting 21st century sensibilities onto something that was, 70 odd years, 80 years ago.
Well, 21st century Western
my impression
sensibilities
is
as well. I mean, Nepal's a completely different culture too.
Indeed. Yeah. And of course, there were lots of sort of Gurkha, mothers of Gurkhas who didn't want their little moppets going off to war. But you got a very, very strong impression that there weren't that many Gurkhas who didn't want to go off to war and join the Gurkhas, that they were all absolutely mad for it. Because like any 18, like lots of 18-year-olds, which is why there's wars in the first place, they want excitement and they want to go off to war and they think they're immortal.
How many? So 40 battalions. I mean, we're talking. Well, how many men is that? Because battalion's sort of 700-800 men, isn't it?
Yeah, battalion's 845, isn't it? Is the kind of standard. So yeah, you're looking at about 35,000, aren't you? I would say.
So with replacements, at least double, triple that maybe. So like, kind of
100,000 plus.
Jeepers! And surely, and then you're probably looking at 1 in 3 as a casualty, not killed, but like wounded and killed. Kind of 1 in 3 is the second World War ratio. Yeah, because they're infantry. Although Stu Taylor he's a sapper, so they also have their ancillary arms as well, don't they? So you get people who are Gurkha sappers. They do. And the way a normal British brigade.
I'm pretty sure that most Gurkhas were. Yeah, there were definitely Gurkha engineers, but I think most Gurkhas were infantrymen. There were rifles.
That's so like more than 100,000. I mean that's got. I don't know what the population of Nepal would have been at the time. So that's got to be basically every other bloke, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah, basically.
God, amazing.
Yeah. It's absolutely amazing. And I remember when I was first doing my book, my second book I ever did was about the North Africa campaign, and I was really determined to kind of try and get some Gurkha voices, and there just aren't any. I mean, it was just a nightmare. And then, so I got in touch with the sort of Gurkha Trust and Welfare Trust and stuff. And it was interesting because what we then did was they send out guys who distribute arms, as in ALMS, to Gurkhas every year, and they're usually retired Gurkha officers. And what they do is they go tramping up into the foothills of the Himalayas on foot and hand out arms. And he said, well, the next guy that's going up there, what I'll do is I'll get him to kind of talk to 1 or 2 of these guys. And I said, well, can I give you a list of questions and can you kind of get it all down? Anyway, he did.
Oh, what?
So I got these couple of interviews with these Gurkhas, and it was just fascinating. I mean, obviously, it wasn't anything like as detailed as it would have been had I been sat down talking to Stuart Watson or something 50 years ago. But it was a voice, well, and I got his.
Because the point you make in your Burma, in the introduction to your Burma book, which is coming out in audiobook format soon, is that you point out
this week.
In fact, you point out that that necessarily your account of that battle has a British perspective because they're the people who've come back, were necessarily literate, have come back, written their accounts, they've been published, they've gone into the sort of system, they've gone into the data stream, if you will, historical data stream, whereas your Indian soldier, your Gurkha soldier, went home, won't have done that, won't have memorialised, and maybe they probably go home and sit round and talk about the old days in Nepal, but accessing that is basically really or virtually impossible, isn't it? Getting your hands on those accounts is really difficult.
Yeah, no, it's really hard. It's really hard getting accounts of just Indian soldiers as well, because they just don't. There just isn't that legacy of the Second World War. There's never been a kind of really any effort at all in India to record any of these voices, and now it's getting too late. I mean, I remember talking to an Indian soldier again for the North Africa book and for the India book, and it was for the Italy book. And it was just fascinating, it really, really was, how they recruited and why he did it and all the rest of it. But yeah, I mean, I interviewed him in London because he'd emigrated to London in the 1950s.
But in a way, they've sort of got bigger historical fish to fry with independence just after it. Partition, the whole thing. You kind of think, well, the Second World War, whatever. It's not, their founding myth. Their founding myth happens after hours.
Yeah, sure, but except that from sort of Quetta all the way down to Ranji and wherever. I mean, there is this, if you're in the Indian Army is absolutely huge. It's millions strong, isn't it? They absolutely know their history, and they're fascinated by it, and they're rightly proud of the contribution to the Second World War. And so it is, on that level, it's odd that there hasn't been more effort to kind of record the voices of these people. It's really interesting. Actually, one of the people we're due to be getting on is Annabel Venning, who wrote this book called To War with the Walkers, and all her grandfather and four other uncles and aunts were all involved in the war and all survived.
Wow.
But 3 of them, I think, were involved in the war in the Far East. And her grandfather was a Gurkha officer. And so she's very big on the Gurkha. So we should follow up on that and get her on.
We definitely should.
Get her talking about it.
Okay, and that'll be... And Stu could listen to that at NHS Nightingale and tell his Gurkha officers and pals to listen to that. Well, anyway... the script says a belated welcome to Ways of Making You Talk. As ever, what James and I did there was we were given one tiny nugget, and it's 12 minutes later. Anyway, it's taken us a year, but we've finally got all our comms working. Thanks to everyone who's got in touch. Lots of you have been emailing us, even more of you tweeting us, and our hardy independent company join us daily to debate the key question of the day on our Patreon site. And that's been fantastic fun the last few days. I mean,
has been good fun.
I'm trying to emulate the great chefs, and I just sit back and let it simmer. I'd occasionally put a little bit of seasoning in, but everyone's bringing their own ingredients, and it's simmering beautifully. It's
I've been getting stuck in.
Someone
said something absolutely outrageous the other day. God, what did he say? Talking about what about the jet engine? As if we bothered or something. It's like we had the best jet engines in the world by 1945.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, by a really long way. That then
and actually, people go on and on and on about what's his name? God, it's completely gone out of my mind. Which just goes to prove the point, really. Frank Whittle. But Whittle, okay, so there's this whole school of thought that kind of that goes something like this, that he was this genius, everyone ignored him, he drove himself to kind of, mental exhaustion, this lone voice of reason, all the rest of it, and he just wasn't really like that. I mean, he had this amazing invention, when you've got this and you're someone like him who is a member of the RAF anyway, and you're kind of just sort of, I've got an idea, folks, do you want to listen? And you're the government or the air ministry, and you've got to make these decisions, and you're being confronted with all sorts of stuff. It's quite hard to kind of back something that fully. It's not...
Well, especially when you've also got loads of things that work. And that,
that's my
point.
You've
got the greatest piston engine ever built, the Merlin, and it's succeeding marks and types. And then its replacement, the Griffin, which is also like a absolutely shining piece of engineering. You maybe and in a strange way, this sort of also epitomises the thing that the Allies basically win the Second World War with the refined weapons of the 1930s. This is Richard Overy pitches this idea. The Allies take the weapons of the 1930s, refine them, perfect them, and win the war with that. The Germans try to invent the weapons of the 50s.
Yes,
and
whereas the British take the time over it.
But if you see what I mean,
so it's that But Whittle is supported, and he does do it. But he's a massive control freak, and he likes doing everything himself, or as much as possibly can himself. And the truth is his first jet engines, they are amazing because they're a major leap forward, but they're not that good. And also, when jet engines really come into their own is when they become axial flow. And axial flow is actually invented in the late 1920s by a guy called Professor A.E. Phillips, who is completely forgotten, who used to be at the RAE in Farnborough. And no one remembers him at all, which is a total travesty because he was an absolute genius. And what happens is that Whittle then Power Jets is his company, and he forms that using with Rover, the car manufacturer.
Yeah.
And they just don't have the knowledge, the business know-how, the acumen to deliver the promise of the Whittle early engines. And so then de Havilland and particularly Rolls-Royce and others then come in and apply what they learn from Whittle to their own projects and with axial flow and all the rest of it. And out of that comes, the Rolls-Royce Avon is the most famous of the axial flow early jet engines, jet turbines. And they're absolutely brilliant. And the British don't hurry it because they don't need to hurry it because they're winning, as Richard Overy says with the refined versions of the inventions of the 1930s. And there's this brilliant, absolutely brilliant doctorate written by, I think she's called Gifford. I can't remember her first name. She's an American, and she was commissioned by the Air League to do this PhD, investigating the development of jet technology, and it's absolutely brilliant. And I'm afraid Frank Whittle doesn't come out of it that brilliant. I mean, he does. I mean, he comes out. But I suppose what it is it's a stamping of the kind of old Frank Whittle much maligned.
But yes, so many of the stories of innovation in the Second World War. Just they end up turning into those terrible films with Robin Williams that he used to make, where we go around banging desks going, "No one will listen to me. When will the establishment take what I have to say seriously? I am the..." And then finally someone would give him his go, and he'd be proved right. Not unlike that Alan Turing film with Benedict Cucumber in it. Where he's going around going, "Why will no one listen to my genius ideas? Don't you know who I'm Alan Turing?" And it's like
it wasn't like that.
But of course, it wasn't fucking like that at all. And all the people that get forgotten in the telling of Bletchley Park in order to tell the story of Alan Turing. It's the same. And that's not to say Turing's contribution isn't. But Bill Tutt, who cracks the Tunny code on a piece of paper, doesn't use a computer.
Yes. I think historically, in terms of misleading people, I think it's worse than U571, that film, because at least U571 everyone knows is a piece of shit. Whereas the point about the Alan Turing
small round of
actually
applause.
Trying to go,
that's the sound of Chiswick clapping right there. Amazing, James. I think you're absolutely right.
Because I can't even remember what it's called now. But the problem with the Benedict Cucumber one is that it's setting itself up
as a history film.
Miscarriage of justice. The miscarriage of justice is that he is driven to commit suicide because he's gay. And that is a totally separate issue to what his contribution was into code breaking in the Second World War, and the two should not be confused.
Because basically Bletchley was allowed to get on with his life because it was too important. Because that's how they ran Bletchley Park, wasn't it? Is that they accepted everyone was it was full of eccentric people and different skills and different types and all that. Anyway, you see, that was that. Then we've done it again. We have digressed. All I did was bring up the fact we've been debating stuff on the Patreon. Off you went, James. Off you went, shredding Frank Whittle, and then getting stuck into Hollywood representations of Alan Turing.
Well, no,
does this man have no mercy?
I'm going to qualify. I'm not shredding Frank Whittle exactly because he was clearly a genius and he was clearly brilliant, and what he did was absolutely amazing.
But it wasn't just. It wasn't just him, and there's this.
It wasn't just him, and he brought it to a level, but he didn't have the wherewithal to take it onto that next level of mass production of high quality products. That was bigger companies like Rolls-Royce and de Havilland that had the wherewithal to do that. And he is to be lauded and feted and remembered and all the rest of it for his original contribution. But this whole idea that, he was up against a brick wall of kind of people who, of sort of desk wallers who were,
well, it's not unlike
to accept genius. That is a myth that needs kicking.
It's not unlike Barnes Wallis, the way Barnes Wallis is depicted in the Dam Busters film, where he's going around banging desks saying, "Will no one listen to my brilliant ideas?" He was basically, you get on with it and see what you can come up with. And he was funded really well. Yeah. He was, that's how they ran it. And I mean, it's a thing we've talked about talking about that we need to talk about.
Charles Portal backs it.
Well, it's technical.
Charles Portal backs it. He's the head man.
Exactly. We need to talk about, at some point, we need to talk about the technocratic aspect of the Second World War. And this is a beautiful example of how you have the story of the lone inventor. I mean, it's like the Reginald Mitchell story, which, again, we need these heroic inventors. Whereas Mitchell is a heroic little inventor, but he's a project manager, and it's other people who work on the Spitfire with him, and he leads it. Then, of course,
Beverly Shenstone,
and then then of course he dies, and then it's handed over. And Supermarine, who are a speed plane company, belong to Vickers. They belong to the military-industrial complex of the 1930s.
Yeah.
And that's actually that's why the Spitfire's a success, is because they deliver something that can be technocratically rolled out, and then an airframe that will undergo multiple updates and adaptations and end up twice as powerful and twice as heavy payload at the end of the war. And it's the technocrats. The inventors are important, and it's because we need this narrative, isn't it? So often that there's a lone guy banging a desk going, "Why will you buggers not listen to me?" And actually, they usually are listening to him, and they're going, problem is Whittle's thing can't be mass produced. So what are we going to do?
Because he's such a control freak.
Yeah. But being a stand-up comic, I don't know anything about.
Talking of technocrats, though. Talking of technocrats, I mean, I just wish a Beaverbrook and an Oliver Littleton would be, zoom straight into the government now.
Save it. It's gold. Save it. We're gonna do them next time. The technocrats.
Okay.
Save that.
Technocrats next time.
Save that
Fine.
gold. We've had lots of debating points. Dan.
We've got to get back on track.
Dan suggested we ask what the Brits were better at than the Yanks in the final year of the war. That went.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
Like that was like one of those Yorkshire puddings at work, rather than the little flat ones I normally make. They go and fill the oven. Roger got in touch and suggested we seek the best engineering feat of the conflict to Crackers, and we got a really fantastic response.
Yeah, and we really loved all the suggestions of engineering initiatives. So Andy Butler suggested the U-boat pens at Lorient. Well, yeah, can't argue that. They're very impressive constructions. But he hasn't been to the Valentin plant in Bremen.
Are we talking Nazi megastructures here, James?
Well, we might be. It's a structure, it's Nazi, and it's certainly mega. Callum Nicholson said the bouncing bomb. Yeah, that's pretty
Loads
impressive.
of you said either the Mulberry Harbour or Bailey Bridges. And I think, again, one of the things we try to talk about is the sort of the things that are commonplace. And the Bailey Bridge is a genius piece of regular engineering around which everything is pitched. When you get into the debates about which tank's better, you can't drive a Tiger over a Bailey Bridge. Simple as that. And the Germans,
well, unless it's bigger than a Class 40.
Yeah, and the Germans don't have anything like a Bailey Bridge anyway. Andrew Aitchison gave us a detailed response. If we're talking combat engineering, yes, absolutely. Here we go. And it's if we're talking combat engineering, then the 1,200-foot Bailey Bridge over the Sangro River in Italy. Yeah, absolutely. Or the longer.
I mean, that is insanely long.
The ambition of that. I mean, that's just nuts. Or
so that's 400 foot.
Yeah, the longest 1,200 feet.
400 yards, right? 400 yards.
So, just shy of 400 metres, 380 metres something. Or the longest pontoon bailey over the Chinduin in Burma. It's very difficult to express how important a rapid build equipment bridge is for modern military forces. The guys that go on about tanks and machine guns often ignore the less sexy but vital items. Yes, did you ever see that account on Twitter called @ThinkDefence? Have you seen that? He's clearly some defence insider who wants to debate current stuff. But
what's he called?
At what? Think Defence, and @ThinkDefence is basically obsessed with bridges. And if you go on his account and you say, "Oh, go on, show us your favourite bridge," he descends into pictures of bridges and Averies with bridges on and all that sort of stuff. Fantastic. So yes, I think probably the Bailey Bridge because after all, the American Mulberry goes wrong in the storm, and they end up just driving LSTs right up onto the beach, don't they, and unloading at high tide. And there's a study that shows that they're delivering material just as quickly as the Bailey, as the Mulberry itself.
Yeah, but only because they've got very, very deep beaches there.
Yeah. So it swings around.
They've got very deep beaches.
Yeah, it swings around.
So if they'd been on the western side, they wouldn't have been able to do that.
Wouldn't have been able to do that. Yeah.
No, because you wouldn't have had a long enough low tide to be able to do that. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So it's having a very, very deep beach is a complete bummer when you're attacking on day one, but thereafter it then becomes a massive advantage. I mean, Utah Beach is where the most is unloaded because it's freaking enormous. It goes on forever, and there's lots of courses that run off it. And you haven't got to get up any bluffs.
And it's at the quiet end of the lodgement, if we're honest.
Yeah. Particularly once a coach
once things are work. Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah. There's nothing going on there. Yeah.
But those bridges, I mean, crikey, it's amazing. I do remember going with a whole bunch of the British Army on a battlefield study, and we were doing 1940, and we were standing at the River Meuse at Dinant, which is where Rommel's 7th Panzer Division gets across, and we were looking at the river there, and we were just saying, because they went over on little ferries and stuff. And they were saying, well, how would you do this now? And they just said there is it's wide, but it's not that wide. It's maybe 80 to 100 metres wide, something like that. And they were just going, there's absolutely no way we could bridge this now. It's absolutely not a chance in hell that we could bridge this.
Well, don't have a kit, don't have the wherewithal.
Anyway, Nick Aston came up with a cracker. He said, how about being able to build a Wellington bomber at Broughton in less than 24 hours? Yep. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
And Paul Bennett said, Liberty ships by a country mile. Revolutionary design principles meant they could turn one out in just 42 days. Yeah. Just stop and think about that for a moment. That's 6 weeks to build a fully operational ocean-going 14,000-ton, 135-metre-long ship with multiple variants from tanker to collier to transport, included the increased use of female labour to maintain production as traditional shipyard workers were conscripted. And many lasted well beyond 5 years life expectancy they started with. Oh, and they made 2,700 ton of them. I would agree with that. I think the Liberty ship is absolutely incredible. Designed, of course, by Cyril Thompson, who was only 34 at the time, from Sunderland in northeast England. He was part of the British Shipbuilding Commission that went over to the States in 1940. And everyone said they went around all the shipyards. And of course, because war was building, was growing, and Roosevelt was part of his rearmament drive, all the shipyards in America were busy. So they said, look, we'd love to help you, but we just simply can't. Then Henry Kaiser, who's this absolute amazing firebrand, who's built the Hoover Dam and built lots of roads and everything, just goes, well, shipyards, how hard can it be? I'm up for that. And he finds a site at Richmond, which is just north of San Francisco, and another one, Portland in Maine, not Portland, Oregon, but Portland, Maine. And he goes, okay, I'll build 2 shipyards. And he builds 2 shipyards literally in 3 months.
Technocrats.
The whole point of the Liberty ship. Yep. Liberty ship was designed to be built in 250 days originally. They then get it down to 125 days. Then they get it to 75. Then they get it to 50. Finally, on the 12th of November, 1942, the Robert E. Perry is launched after 4 days, 16 hours and 26 minutes.
God, so because 42 days, which is the figure he came up with originally, that's basically
so that's the average. That's the average.
But that's how long we've been in lockdown. I haven't built anything like a ship in that time. I haven't been that productive.
You built a Sherman Firefly.
Yeah, that's true. Now, that is 37,940,000 tons of shipping. 14,000.
That's just insane. It's unbelievable.
14,000 ton. Yeah, times 2,710. That's basically 38 million tons of shipping.
That's why we won.
What an audience.
That's why we won.
That's why we won. Yeah, what an audience we get for this podcast. So we are going to take a short break and then we'll be back with more of this. I bet we're going to go off subject. Welcome back to We Have Ways of Making You Talk. More digressions in that. And I can't think of a thing where they digress. I mean,
yeah, but it was really good fun.
We've broken the mould on really digression, and now I'm digressing. Dear God, will it never end? Okay, well, we've got... No, it's good fun. We got 3 treats for you this week. On Thursday, we've got a special podcast with Guy Walters, all about hunting Nazis, or as he says, not hunting Nazis. Guy is in brilliant form, and you don't want to miss that. We recorded that last week, and it's fascinating, and some things where you go, what? That can't be the case. And it turns out they are. Then on...
Imagine having sharing a bottle of wine with Eric Priebke. I mean, that is just must have been most surreal experiences of his life.
All of it's surreal, though. I mean, the stuff about the phone book. I won't go any further than that. But the stuff about the phone.
Yeah, but he was really good on all that, wasn't he?
It's brilliant, really fascinating. In fact, and yet again, one of those conversations where we could have done twice as much and not covered half as much as we wanted to. Okay, so that's this Thursday. Then on Thursday evening, of course, that evening we're live streaming again, 8:30. Maybe, in fact, you'll have listened to Guy and have some questions to bung into the pot, having heard what Guy said. So at 8:30 a live stream. We had more than 400 of you last week, and it was a hoot. We managed to answer 20 of your questions live on air. We're back at the same time this Thursday, and my reading of Dennis Barnum's sensational book about being a Spitfire pilot in Malta continues this week. It's a lost masterpiece, I think. Don't miss it. It reaches its sort of extraordinary climax in 3 or 4 episodes' time. It's a staggering book, and we're now scratching our heads and going through the colossal pile of out of print Second World War memoirs to figure out what to do next. Right, it's time for your questions now. Gents, I'm interested to learn more about the German raid on Bari that resulted in the mustard gas shells being hit on the Allied ship and resulting casualties. I hadn't heard about this until recently and wondered why. I gather it was covered up at the time. What? I don't know about this. Mustard gas shells on an Allied ship? What? We're the good guys.
Yes, so, Paul Cantwell is quite right to ring this up. This is early December 1943. And we have, let's face it, I think we have to put our hands in the air and say we got a little bit cocksure and felt that the Luftwaffe didn't really have it in it to deliver a half-decent raid. But over 100 Junkers 88s attack Bari Harbour. The original plan, what Catherine really wants is for them to attack Foggia, which has just been captured at the end of October, I think it was. And that was the whole point of that, was the number one objective for going into Italy in the first place, was to get those airfields so that you could continue tightening the noose around Nazi Germany with a strategic air force, which becomes the 15th Air Force, which is formed up. And they have the priority on build-up as well, which is one of the reasons why 5th and 8th Army struggle a little bit in Italy, because the priority is going to the air forces. Anyway, Catherine originally wants to go to Foggia. They just, von Richthofen, who is the two-figure corps commander in the area, doesn't feel they have quite the resources out, but suggests this attack on Bari, because Bari is a big important port for the Allies, and he feels that if they can attack that, there's loads of merchant ships in delivering material, and if they can hammer that could slow up the Allied advance. And they actually think, I think it is 27 ships. What? One of the ships. Yes, 27 ships are sunk.
That's a good day for the Luftwaffe.
It's an amazing day for the Luftwaffe. And egg and faces have an alignment on that one. One of the ships contains mustard gas shells, which there is absolutely no intention to use them, but there is a rumour that the Germans are going to use chemical weapons. So they've got them there just in case. And unfortunately what happens is there's lots of oil in the water, and the oil and the mustard gas mix. And when the casualties are all being hauled, picked up and all the rest of it and taken, it's burns victims and stuff that get the priority. Whereas they just think people covered in oil, that's not really much of a problem. But of course they're not covered in oil, they're actually covered in oil and mustard gas. And the mustard gas brings them all out. And there's something like 630 survivors who get stricken with this. But it does happen. I think it's like the 3rd of December, 2nd December, 3rd of December, 1943.
I'll put my hand up. I confess, I've looked it up on Wikipedia. Got to start somewhere. 2nd of December, 1943. 105 Junkers 88s. Incredible. And after World War II, it goes on to talk about this. Blah blah blah. After World War II, these samples. So, tissue samples from autopsied victims at Bari after World War II, these samples would result in the development of an early form of chemotherapy based on mustard.
No way.
Mustine.
No. So how many people are killed in that then? Because I don't know that.
1,000 military and merchant marine personnel killed, 1,000 civilians killed, 1 aircraft destroyed. Yes, that's a really good day for the Luftwaffe.
So Petraeus is hit, and that's our old friend Hayo Herman, who hits an ammunition ship and blows up Petraeus Harbour. It's just one of those amazing hits that just causes far more damage than it should have done. And Bari and it's the worst strike ever on an Allied port in the Second World War, apart from Pearl Harbor, pretty much.
So it's a Liberty ship that we were just talking about. It's a Liberty ship. The John Harvey had been carrying a secret cargo of 2,000
yes, that's the one that's got
mustard gas bombs.
But so it's a big old thing, and it absolutely does set them back, because when one of the reasons why the Allies are so successful in the second half of the war is because they've won the Battle of the Atlantic, which means they can plan properly because they know what shipping is coming in. The moment you lose some of that shipping, if you lose sort of 15-20%, it just absolutely screws everything, because your whole timetables get screwed.
The storm in Normandy.
Build-up screws.
The storm in Normandy. If you want to explain Goodwood, storm in Normandy is your explanation. Why have you ended up doing a thing like that, where you're sending out, you've got all these tanks but no infantry and running out of ammo, Anyway, gosh, that is fascinating. I did not know about that, and I will have to find some. Has anyone written a book about it? I expect there's
Overy mentions it in his Bomber War book.
I expect there's some sort of quite sensational cover-up books about that as well, because it was absolutely totally hushed up. Records destroyed, the whole thing. So, gosh, brilliant.
Well, I remember studying it when I was doing my Italy book. And although it was before my timetable was kind of, I think, May to May, so May 44 to May 45, and obviously that happens beforehand. But it was, the repercussions of that were still being felt in that, and I remember reading about it then. Amazing, yeah. one of those ones that's slightly brushed under the carpet, to put it mildly.
Okay, Matthew Hopkins asks, "Hi Alan James, love the podcast. Always gives me something to look forward to when I listen on long days in the tractor." Hello Matthew and your tractor. My great-grandfather during the war was a farm worker on the Wardour estate at Tisbury for John Francis
I know it well.
Arundel, the last Baron of Arundel. He was a captain in the Wiltshire Regiment, was captured in France in 1940, was in Colditz, but he got TB in 1944 and was repatriated back to England, died in September 44 in Chester. My question for you is, did this happen very often, or was this the only time it happened during the war?
Well, first of all, Tisbury is just a hop and a skip away from where I am at the moment. I know Wardour very well. An old Wardour castle is an old ruined. It was ruined in the English Civil War. And when I was a nipper, we used to go and go to the local pubs in Tisbury, get a bit wrecked, and then go and jump over the walls and spook each other.
Really?
By climbing around the castle in the middle of the night. It's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. So I know Wardour, and now there's new Wardour Castle, which is now kind of, luxury apartments and flats and stuff. It's a really beautiful part of the world. And anyway, so I don't know too much detail about this, but I do know it happened not infrequently. It absolutely did happen.
Yeah.
And it cut both ways as well. There were prisoner exchanges, and prisoner exchanges have been going on, since the year dot, haven't they? I mean, it's an ancient thing.
Yeah.
And the Second World War wasn't any exception. I mean, you kind of sort of think, well, how does that happen? Well, I suppose what happens is you just get put on a train and you've got special passes and off you go.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to necessarily get Lisbon and Switzerland involved.
But I expect him being the last Baron of Arundel. There's a little bit of string pulling here. He's getting the treatment that your average squaddy might not. Now, Nick Rogers asks, did the Allies have a plan for what would happen next, assuming Market Garden was successful? And the answer is yes. Operation Gatwick was Monty's overarching scheme for what he would do next. And Gatwick, once it goes wrong, Market Garden, he basically modifies Gatwick, and it's basically what they end up doing with the Vaisal and all that. Is that there definitely wasn't. There was a plan for a left flanking breakout round to Rotterdam originally, and building up in the salient and then breaking out. And they adapt Gatwick and use Nijmegen as the top of the new Gatwick. That then, so you clear the Reichswald and then you set yourself up for taking Vaisal. So there very much definitely was a scheme and a plan, and in fact it's the thing that Montgomery then adapts and that turns into the rest of Second Army Group's war, actually. So 90% successful, which is the thing that he's beaten up with. Yeah, and then he adapts to the 90% successful outcome of Market Garden, and so they very definitely did. And I often think when people say, "Oh, he should have cleared Antwerp, he should have cleared the Scheldt." If you'd got to Arnhem and you'd been breaking out left, you'd have encircled Antwerp and the Scheldt properly, wouldn't you? You'd have probably taken Rotterdam, so your Antwerp's less important to you. Again, Antwerp's important if Market Garden fails. But if Market Garden succeeds, Antwerp's less important. Clearing Antwerp as a harbour is less of a priority. Would you not say? Yeah,
completely. I mean, we've said it before. In the circumstances, at the moment, with the US, with the Allied Airborne Army, it's got to be worth the punt.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was very nearly successful.
Yeah.
It very nearly worked.
Very, very, very nearly.
Only failed by 10%.
Well, that's it for today. That's going to set them off. We're back with Guy Walters on Thursday, who will be telling us all about hunting evil. Then we're live streaming at 8:30 p.m. UK time on Thursday night. Get your questions ready. We answered 20 in just over an hour last week, which for us counts as extremely rapid fire. That really does.
Yeah, I don't mind telling you, I was slightly running out of steam at the end there. I really was, and I know someone was a bit upset for my paltry answer about murder orders at the end of the Japanese War, but that was because I was basically asleep at that point.
Well, you were 90% successful last Thursday.
Yeah, I was 90% successful. 10% wasn't. So what I need is some Pervitin, obviously.
So, details on Twitter or at patreon.com/wehaveways. Please do subscribe and rate us wherever you get your podcasts. There's more of Dennis Barnum every day. Follow us on Twitter at wehavewayspod. Email us at wehavewayspodcast@gmail.com. Cheerio, see you soon.
Yeah, cheerio.